Okay, well, Ben, look, no, it's all right, I'll do it. So under the local government regulation, council can invite expressions of interest prior to asking for written tenders. The reason why the recommendation is worded this way is that the Act requires the council, by virtue of the wording in a minute, to reflect the reasons. Chris, just perfect timing. Just don't say anything different to what I'm saying. Do you want to present your item?
Good morning, everyone. So first, the item today was procurement. Is around the procurement plan for the construction contractor for the Bundaberg, the new regional aquatics centre. The recommendation is that council, pursuant to section 2283 alpha of the local government regulations 2012, resolves to invite open public expressions of interest before inviting written tenders for the construction of the Bundaberg Regional Aquatic Centre. And the main reasoning behind this is that the construction of the Bundaberg Regional Aquatic Centre will be one of the largest single contracts that council has ever awarded. The construction of large pools, including the associated plant and filtration equipment, is very technical in nature and should only be undertaken by specialist subcontractors. Any issues during the construction or any settlement post-construction can be extremely expensive to rectify, and the proposed two-stage procurement process will assist in reducing council's risk by ensuring it is undertaken by a contractor experienced in delivering these works. The assessment criteria for the initial expression of interest will focus on contractors demonstrating they have sufficient experience and meet the requirements around insurances and corporate social responsibilities.
Thanks, Chris. And before I ask for any comments or questions, I'll just point out that the lengthy wording of that recommendation is to comply with the requirements of the Act to actually minute the reasons why we're going through the process in the way we are. Any comments or questions? No? All good. Thanks, Chris. Then we move on to finance. Doug, you're in the hot seat. Simon's not here.
Good morning, councillors. Item F1 is the final management report for the 2021 financial audit that's been presented today. It's, as part of the background, it's the annual financial audit that's provided through the external auditors, and council has again received an unmodified audit opinion, and there was no matters that were raised. There were two matters from the prior year that have been resolved, and so there's all matters. We have a clean bill of health, and the recommendation is for council to note the final management report for the 2021 financial audit.
Thanks, Doug. Any comments or questions? Councillor Haberman.
The audit fee of $158,000, is that what we expect every year, or does it have to be done by the Queensland Audit Office, or have we got any other opportunities to?
Okay, the Queensland Audit Office appoints independent auditors to conduct the audit on council's behalf. We don't have any choice in who the auditors are, and quite correctly, I believe, for probity reasons. On occasions, the Queensland Audit Office will conduct the audit themselves. Pitcher Partners have been our auditors now, I think, for about 5 or 6 years, and the audit fee is actually set by the QAO accepts the audit fee that is set by Pitcher Partners, and the audit fee for this year, the final audit cost reflected what the original quotation was. There was no variation to the audit fee as to what we were expecting, because there was nothing out of the ordinary that they had to do. Does that answer all your questions? Okay.
Whether there was any opportunity to
Negotiate a better deal? No.
Yeah, or an alternate auditor.
No. The council's, no council in Queensland has any choice as to who undertakes the audit. Any other comments on the audit? No? All right. And you don't do the summary too, Doug? Thanks.
So item F2 is the financial summary as at the 1st of October 2021 that's presented. This is a requirement under the local government regulation to present a monthly report, and you'll be familiar with the format for this. The recommendation is that the financial summary for the 1st of October be noted by council. Just a few points to highlight as per the attachment 1. The rates and utility charges have been levied for the first half of the year, and I'll come back to a couple of points in a moment around the rates and utility charges. Fees and charges, as presented in the last month, development activity continues with speed around the region, and that's reflected in the fees and charges income, which has been higher than the quarterly budget comparative. The airport travel's still impacted by restrictions interstate and in general. The offset is that holiday parks occupancy remains high. Interest on overdue rates, point to note is that it's lower than comparative years. That's reflected by low levels of rate arrears, which is good news. On an expenditure side, employee costs are slightly unfavourable against budget. Obviously there's annual payments that impact quarterly comparatives, and that will just be monitored throughout the year. Materials and services around on budget. On a capital expenditure, there's 16 million that's been spent year to date for the first quarter. Obviously that's the trend is more quarter 3 and quarter 4 that sees significant spend for capital as we go through the procurement process for the first 6 months. Point to highlight around the grant for the Works for Queensland funding that we received half up front is for the regional aquatic facility. On a cash basis, for the month ending September is usually the peak in cash holdings, as we've received the rates income for the July to December quarter, July to December half year, and then we'll see the trend decrease through to January next year. But there's nothing for any short-term liquidity issues that's foreseen. On the rates, as I referred to earlier, I'd come back to, the rates outstanding for the September quarter is down to 8.5%. Comparatively to last year was 15.4%. So a market difference. Admittedly, last year there was COVID impacts. And just to note that the reminder notices were issued in September. And probably finally is borrowings. Quarterly debt balance is 71.4 million.
Thanks. No. Comments or questions? No? All good. Thank you. Then we move into governance and the 2021 annual report presentation. Christine.
Good morning, councillors. Item G1 is the annual report. So in accordance with the Local Government Act and Local Government Regulation, council is required to prepare an annual report each financial year. The annual report must be adopted within 1 month after the Auditor General gives the Auditor General's report about Council's financial statements for the financial year. As you've just heard from Doug, the annual Auditor General's report was received on the 8th of October and provided Council with an unmodified audit opinion. The annual report is attached for Council to adopt and has been completed and is all legislatively compliant.
Thanks, Christine. Comments or questions? Councillor Mitchell.
Good morning, Christine. Page 71 of the annual report, 4.8, changes to tenders. Do you have any more information on what the change was?
I'll have to take that on notice, Councillor Mitchell, and find that out from Council's procurement manager.
Thank you very much.
No other questions? I'll move on to item G2, which is in regard to the operational plan for the first quarter. So Council's required to present to Council a report as to how Council's progressing towards implementing the annual operational plan, which was adopted at Council's special budget meeting. The quarterly report provides a process for monitoring and assessing Council's progress in meeting the goals of the corporate plan. The attached report highlights the achievements of Council over the past 3 months, with most areas achieving the target set. Each manager has provided a comment in the report on their department and section's progress. So the 2021 to 2022 operational plan quarter 1 is to be received and noted by Council.
I was just wondering, do the KPIs change each year, do they? Because some of these things we're now measuring, we weren't measuring last year.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
Yep. So
your plan, oh yeah, okay. Yeah, and can I just ask a question in relation to all the ones at the beginning that we're just tracking to find. So the ones, data's being collected for observation and analysis in community and environment. Have those ones been put in relation to gathering data for the services review? Is that no?
No, just in response to that question, Councillor, part of the reason we do some of that tracking is for some of our funding programs, we just have to record data.
Yep.
So as part of that acquittal process, so it's either contracted or it's one of the ways that we look at, how many services we're providing, whether we need to look at resourcing and changing the service delivery. So we just look at what the trends are, because some cases a high result for some KPIs might be a bad one, but if we get growth, particularly, we expect it to increase. So we just want to keep a track of that, because then we have to report that back, particularly where we get state and federal funding, to say that we're now getting more people seeking assistance, and therefore request additional funding for the region. So.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gav. Any other questions? No, all good.
Item G3 is the Audit and Risk Management Committee minutes. So the committee met on the 2nd of September 2021, and the minutes are attached for Council's information and to be received and noted by Council.
Thanks, Christine. Comments or questions? No, all good. Thank you.
The next item is G4, which is a specialised supplier arrangement for Monday.com subscription. The specialised supplier has been previously approved by Council in December 2019. Monday.com is used by Council to manage capital projects and operational processes. Many branches throughout Council are using Monday.com for this purpose. Council currently has 100 seats, and it's proposed that they increase, and therefore, given that the specialised supplier is coming to an end, that a new specialised supplier be resolved by Council given its purpose, and that the arrangement be in place then until July 2022, and with a further option period of 3 years, making it until July 2025.
Thanks, Chris. Comments or questions? Councillor McPhee.
I have a question. So the Jack Taylor Group, they just on-sell this product, Monday.com, that we use. So I was just wondering, like, I understand with specialised supplier agreements, sometimes the actual product or item or service that we're purchasing is only available through that supplier. Is there any reason that we're not looking at quotes from other suppliers? Because there are other suppliers of Monday.com in Australia and New Zealand who do specialise in government. I'm just...
Do you know the answer? I have to take it on notice.
Yeah,
we'll
have
take
to take that on notice.
Thank you.
Check with Mitch.
Which is actually in Brisbane, otherwise he would have been
Oh,
here
yeah.
to do this. Thank you.
No other comments or questions? No? Just in relation to the two questions we've taken on notice, if we can't get answers to you today at the meeting, I'll distribute those by email to all councillors. Stuart, welcome.
Morning, councillors. So I'm here to present the report in relation to the Downer contract on the Rubiana sewage treatment plant. Council engaged Downer to construct the Rubiana sewage treatment plant through a design, build and operate contract which expires on the 7th of May next year. This report proposes a process to transition the operation of the treatment plant back to Council Day Labor and engaging Downer in an interim arrangement to ensure there's a seamless transfer of the intellectual property. As Downer is the only reasonable supplier of the service, it's proposed to utilise the exceptions to tender arrangements in section 235B of the regulations, and the recommendations that are part of this report effectively conclude the contractual arrangements with Downer and utilise those exception requirements in the regulations.
Thanks, Stuart. Comments or questions? No? All good. Thank you. Oh, sorry, Councillor Haberman.
The fact that it's for a 3-year period, the arrangement for the initial period, February 2022 to January 25, is there, we don't see that would be able to take over total control before 2025?
Yes, we will. Perhaps that third part of the recommendation is superfluous in that regard. I'll revisit that before the council meeting next week.
Thank you.
Okay, so any more questions or comments? No? Thanks, Stuart. Next one is the library. Gav.
Item 01, so Library Services Tender Consideration Plan. I'll probably just describe it as a bit of housekeeping. So under Council's procurement requirements, we're required where we have do purchases greater than $2,000 that we have to get quotes. Because of the I guess, unique nature of some of the things we purchase in libraries and the fact that there are copyright laws which indicate that only certain providers can provide certain material and resources, that we're proposing to put in this tender consideration plan. So we use local buy for most of the products that we buy through libraries, but we exceed that $2,000 threshold, which is why we need to put in this tender consideration plan. So it covers us off from a procurement perspective to ensure that there's transparency in the process we're following, but also gives us that flexibility because we can't necessarily go and get 3 quotes for some of these things because they're a sole supplier, or because of copyright laws there's only one person who can actually legally supply it. So happy to take any questions if there are any.
We did this same type of tender for Bragg, didn't we? Yes, yeah.
Is that if you have an artist who produces, in that case, a piece of artwork, you can't go and get 3 quotes because they're the only ones who do it. So it's just about making sure we're getting value for money, that there is a process around it. So I guess there is some protections. If we're open to scrutiny, we can demonstrate the fact that we're aware of it, but we put a process in place to ensure that there's some integrity.
Thanks, Gav. Any other questions, comments? No? All good? Nothing late in open? Okay, we've got one item in confidential. We'll just close.